In 50,000 BCE, standardized language never developed. You think words just happened naturally, that humans started talking and everyone understood each other and civilization grew from there. But that's not what occurred. Language standardization was a miracle, a fragile accident that almost didn't happen. And in this timeline, it didn't. Every group speaks differently. Not just different languages. Different fundamental systems of communication that can't translate, can't connect, can't share meaning. Your mouth makes sounds. Their mouth makes sounds. But the sounds mean nothing to each other. The gap never closes. Let me show you what the world looks like when ideas can't travel. When knowledge dies with the person who discovered it. When humans are forever trapped in small, isolated groups, unable to coordinate, unable to build, unable to become anything more than scattered tribes speaking in tongues that no one else will ever understand. You're in East Africa. A group of about 30 humans sits together. They're communicating, but it's chaos. Each person learned language from their parents, but their parents had slightly different systems. No standardization occurred. No agreement on what sounds mean what. So everyone speaks, but no one fully understands anyone else. One person makes a series of clicks and grunts. They're trying to explain where they found water today. Half the group understands the general idea. A quarter understands specifically. The rest just see someone making noise. They've learned to watch body language more than listen to words. The person points in a direction, makes drinking motions. This communicates more than the sounds. Another person responds with different sounds. Vowels and consonants in patterns the first person doesn't recognize. They're asking if the water source is safe. But the question doesn't translate. The first person stares blankly, shrugs. The second person gives up and decides to just go check themselves later. This is every interaction. Partial communication, misunderstanding, frustration, information lost in translation that isn't even translation because there's no common baseline to translate from. Children in this group are learning language, but they're learning different versions from each parent. Mother speaks one way, father speaks another. The child's brain tries to reconcile this. Creates a hybrid that neither parent fully understands. By the time the child is an adult, they speak a language unique to themselves. Their children will learn this corrupted version and corrupt it further. Each generation drifts further from the last. There is no preserving knowledge this way. An older person learns something valuable through experience. They try to teach the younger generation. But the explanation doesn't translate properly. Details are lost. Nuance disappears. The younger person gets a vague idea at best, often gets it completely wrong. The knowledge degrades or dies. Someone discovers that a certain plant can reduce fever. They try to explain which plant and how to use it, but the explanation involves describing the plant's appearance, where it grows, how to prepare it, complex information. The listener understands maybe half, tries it on the wrong plant. Someone dies from poisoning. The remedy is lost and now associated with danger. No one tries again. Technical skills degrade for the same reason. Someone develops a better way to make a stone tool, sharper edges, more durable. They try to teach others, but teaching requires precise language, exact descriptions of angle and pressure and technique. Without shared language, the teaching is just watching and imitating. Some people get it. Most don't. The technique spreads slowly, corrupted, often lost entirely when that person dies. The group fractures over time. Arguments that can't be resolved because no one understands each other well enough to explain their position or negotiate. Frustration builds. Someone leaves, takes family members with them, forms a new, smaller group. Now there are two groups with even less shared language. The drift accelerates. Decades pass. The two groups have diverged completely. They encounter each other while following the same herd. Try to communicate. Can't. Not even basic concepts. The sounds are completely foreign now. Hand signals and context are the only communication. They regard each other almost as different species. Strange humans who make wrong sounds. Both groups are unsettled. They avoid each other and move on. This pattern repeats across Africa, across the world. Humans spread, but never connect. Every valley has its own groups, speaking their own unique languages, that no outsider will ever learn. Because learning requires teaching. Teaching requires time and patience and shared foundation, none of which exists between groups that have no reason to trust each other and no way to communicate intention. Trade doesn't develop. How do you trade when you can't explain what you want or what you're offering? Can't agree on value. Can't negotiate terms. One group has good stone for tools, another group has access to better hunting grounds. They could benefit from exchange. But they can't coordinate it. They try once, massive confusion. Someone feels cheated. Violence erupts. Both groups leave convinced the other is hostile and incomprehensible. Trade dies before it starts. Alliances are impossible. Two groups could team up to hunt larger prey more safely, but coordinating a hunt requires complex communication, explaining strategy, assigning roles, timing actions. Without shared language, attempts at cooperation collapse into chaos. Someone misunderstands their role, gets in the way, causes the hunt to fail, or causes injury. Both groups blame each other, separate, never try again. Marriage between groups could increase genetic diversity. But how do you court someone who doesn't understand you? How do you negotiate with their family? How do you integrate into a group where no one speaks your language and you speak no one else's? It happens occasionally through gestures and persistence. But it's rare. The genetic pools stay isolated. Someone in a group has a revelation. They look at the stars and notice patterns. Realize the patterns predict seasons. This is huge. This is the foundation of calendars and agriculture and planning. They try to explain this to their group. But explaining astronomical observation requires pointing at tiny lights in the sky and connecting them to abstract concepts of time and cyclical patterns. No one understands. The person is regarded as strange, obsessed with the sky. The knowledge dies with them. Another person in a different group makes a similar observation, has the same revelation, also can't communicate it effectively, also takes the knowledge to their grave. This happens hundreds of times across the world. Breakthrough insights that could change everything. Lost because language can't carry complex, abstract ideas across even one generation, let alone many. Agriculture never develops. Someone notices that seeds grow into plants, tries to explain that you could deliberately plant seeds to create food where you want it. But this requires explaining delayed gratification, planning for future seasons, coordinating group effort. The explanation fails. The group doesn't understand why you'd waste seeds by putting them in the ground when you could eat them now. The person tries to demonstrate. Plants a small patch. The group eats the sprouts before they mature. Experiment over. Another person, in another location, has the same idea. Plants seeds, protects them, gets a small harvest, tries to show the group that this works. But then the group moves on, following the migration they always follow. The planted area is left behind. The harvest rots unharvested. The person's attempt to convince the group to stay is incomprehensible to everyone else. Why would you stay in one place? Food is out there. You follow it. The concept of creating food sources doesn't translate. Writing never gets invented. Writing requires abstract symbolic thinking, agreement on what symbols mean, standardized language to represent. None of these prerequisites exist. Someone might scratch marks on rocks to remind themselves of something, but personal notation systems don't spread, don't become shared, don't become writing. Numbers stay basic. 1, 2, many. You can show quantities with fingers, but complex arithmetic requires language, requires teaching, requires shared understanding of abstract quantities. None of this happens. Mathematical thinking stays trapped at the most primitive level. The concept of teaching as formal activity doesn't exist. Learning happens through observation and imitation. Children watch adults, try to copy them, sometimes succeed, often fail. There's no structured knowledge transfer, no curriculum, no progressive building of skills. Just watch and hope you figure it out. Specialization never happens. Everyone has to be able to do everything because you can't rely on trading with specialists who you can't communicate with. Everyone makes their own tools badly. Everyone hunts badly. Everyone gathers adequately. No one excels because excellence requires learning from the best and teaching others. The knowledge can't transfer. Technology stagnates. Stone tools stay simple. Someone might create something clever once, but they can't explain how they did it. Others can't replicate it. The tool breaks, the knowledge is gone. Progress happens in isolated flashes that never connect into advancement. Fire is controlled, barely. Someone in each group probably figures out how to keep fire going or create it through friction. But the technique varies by group. Some groups lose the knowledge when their firekeeper dies and can't teach anyone effectively. Those groups go back to opportunistic fire use from lightning strikes. The knowledge is too fragile. Cooking exists, but is basic. Throw food into fire. Take it out when it seems ready. No cuisine, no recipes, no shared knowledge of what combinations work. Everyone figures it out individually through trial and error. Medicine is superstition and accident. Someone gets sick. Someone gives them a plant. Sometimes they recover. Was it the plant? Was it time? No one knows, can't document it, can't share the information reliably. Each person is their own doctor with no training and no knowledge base. Wounds kill frequently. Infections are mysterious. Pain is unexplained. Disease is random. No one can share observations about what helps or what makes it worse. Medical knowledge remains at zero. Childbirth is dangerous for the same reason. Older women might have experience, might try to help. But communicating technique and knowledge is nearly impossible. Complications happen. No one knows what to do. Many mothers die. Many babies die. Every birth is isolated trial and error. Stories don't exist as shared culture. No myths passed down through generations. Someone might tell their children about something that happened. But the telling is rough. Details are lost. By the third generation, nothing remains. No cultural memory, no identity, no shared narrative. Religion doesn't develop in organized form. People might fear natural phenomena, might attribute agency to thunder or wind. But complex religious thought requires abstract language and teaching, requires shared theology. None of this exists. Each person's spirituality is private and incommunicable. Art exists as personal expression only. Someone draws on a rock. The image means something to them, means nothing to anyone else. No symbolism, no shared meaning, just marks. Music is only rhythm, beating sticks, clapping. No complex melody because that requires teaching and learning scales and coordination, just banging. Social structures stay flat. No real hierarchy because hierarchy requires communication of roles and responsibilities and authority. The strongest person might dominate through physical intimidation. But there's no chief, no council, no government, just individuals coexisting with minimal coordination. Conflict resolution is violence. Can't talk it out when you can't talk. Arguments escalate immediately to physical confrontation. The stronger person wins. Resentment builds. Groups fracture. Size stays small. Trust is minimal. How do you trust someone you can't communicate with? Every interaction is uncertain. Motives are unclear. Intentions are ambiguous. Everyone operates in a state of mild paranoia. Population density stays extremely low. Groups avoid each other, can't coordinate even if they wanted to. The landscape is dotted with tiny, isolated groups, each speaking their own incomprehensible dialect, each alone. Humans spread across continents but stay disconnected. Some groups make it to Asia, others to Europe eventually, but they're isolated populations. No contact, no shared knowledge. The Asian groups don't know African groups exist. European groups are alone, each facing the same problems, each solving them poorly in isolation. Australia gets populated by a small group that made it across on accident or during low sea levels. They arrive speaking their unique language, develop in complete isolation. Their language drifts further, splits into more dialects as groups separate. Thousands of years later, Australia has hundreds of small groups, each speaking incomprehensible languages. The Americas get populated during ice ages when land bridges exist. Small groups cross, spread south. Each group isolates. Languages multiply. By the time the continents are populated, there are thousands of distinct languages with no common root. No way to communicate between any of them. Islands stay empty or get single small populations. Easter Island, Madagascar, Hawaii, each populated by one tiny group if at all. No trade routes, no exploration coordinated enough to deliberately find and settle new lands. Just accidents of drift and luck. The human population worldwide stays low, maybe 10 million at most, spread thin, disconnected. Each group struggling alone with problems that could be solved through cooperation, but can't be because cooperation requires communication. Someone invents the bow and arrow. Huge technological leap. Changes hunting completely. But the invention stays with their group. Dies out when they die. Someone else invents it independently 1,000 miles away. Same thing happens. The invention sparks into existence and vanishes hundreds of times across history, never spreads, never accumulates. Someone figures out how to make adhesive from tree sap. Revolutionary for tool making. Can't explain it. The knowledge stays local. Disappears. Reinvented elsewhere, lost again. Someone domesticates a wolf pup. The dog becomes helpful for hunting and protection. Other groups see this, try to copy it. Most fail because they don't understand the process. The few who succeed have dogs but can't breed them effectively. Can't share knowledge of training. Each group with dogs is starting from scratch. Pottery gets invented by accident. Someone lines a basket with clay, puts it near fire. The clay hardens. This is huge. Storage, cooking vessels, containers for water. But the person can't explain the process clearly. Others try, most fail. Make clay too thin or too thick. Fire it wrong. It breaks. The technique is too finicky to spread without good teaching. Wheels never get invented. Wheels require abstract thinking about rotation and axles and application. Requires planning and precision. Requires language to explain the concept. None of this happens. Transport stays on backs, and by dragging. Boats stay basic. Logs tied together at best. Hollowed logs. Nothing sophisticated. Building a real boat requires coordination of multiple people following a plan. Can't happen without communication. Navigation is line of sight only, no maps. No way to describe routes to others. Each person learns geography through personal experience. The knowledge doesn't transfer. Time awareness is immediate. Today, tomorrow. No complex calendars, no long-term planning. Can't coordinate events in the future with other groups because you can't communicate timing. Warfare never organizes. Conflicts between groups are brief, violent encounters. No strategy, no tactics, just charging and fighting until one side retreats. No armies, no campaigns, no conquest, just sporadic violence between groups that hate and fear each other but can't coordinate enough to truly fight. Peace isn't negotiated. Groups just avoid each other, or one dominates the other briefly before drifting apart again. Leadership is whoever is strongest or most intimidating in the moment. No formal roles, no successors. When the strong person dies, there's chaos until someone else dominates. Elderly people have experience but can't communicate it effectively. Their wisdom dies with them. They're kept around if the group is generous. Abandoned if resources are tight. Their value is minimal because they can't transfer knowledge. Children learn through observation, but most of what they observe, they can't replicate well. Each generation is slightly worse at things than the last. Slow degradation of skills. Memory is personal and unreliable. No shared history, no documentation. Events are forgotten within a generation. The past doesn't exist beyond vague impressions. Identity is immediate family only. No tribe identity, no ethnic identity, no shared culture to identify with. You're you and your immediate family. That's it. Loneliness is profound even in groups. You're surrounded by people you can't truly communicate with, can't share thoughts with, can't fully understand or be understood by. Humans are social creatures living in social isolation despite being physically together. Innovation happens constantly, but never compounds. Smart people have good ideas regularly, but the ideas die with them, can't be built upon. Can't inspire others. Each generation starts from nearly zero. The best tool maker in a group dies. Their techniques die with them. The next generation's tools are worse. This happens everywhere. Constant loss. Someone figures out that certain stars can guide direction at night. Useful for not getting lost. Can't explain it well enough. Dies. Knowledge gone. Someone realizes that smoke signals could communicate over distance. Tries to implement a system, but it requires agreement on what different smoke patterns mean. Can't get agreement. The idea dies. Someone invents a trap design that's very effective. Can't teach it. Others watching try to copy it, get it wrong. The trap design is lost. A person discovers how to tan leather properly, make it soft and durable. Revolutionary for clothing, tries to show others. The process is complex, multiple steps. Timing matters. Technique matters. Most people watching don't get it. Try it. Fail. The leather stays stiff or rots anyway. Only the discoverer can do it right. When they die, the knowledge vanishes. Someone figures out that certain combinations of plants are more nutritious together. Proto-cooking knowledge. Can't communicate why these combinations work. Others see them eating specific foods together. Try to copy it. Miss key ingredients. Don't understand proportions. The nutritional benefit is lost. A hunter develops a better stalking technique. Gets much closer to prey before striking. Dramatically increases success rate. They try teaching this, but it's subtle. Body positioning, reading animal behavior, patience, wind direction awareness. Too complex to communicate without precise shared language. Others try. Do it wrong. Spook the prey. The technique stays personal. Fishing techniques vary wildly between groups near water. Some figure out basic nets, some use spears, some use traps. Each technique stays local. Groups living 20 miles apart on the same river use completely different methods. Neither learns from the other. Both could improve by sharing knowledge. Neither can. Preservation techniques for food remain primitive and varied. One group figures out that food lasts longer buried in cold ground. Another discovers that certain leaves wrapped around meat slow decay. A third finds that wind drying works for some foods. None of these groups share information. Each technique stays isolated. Most groups have no preservation methods at all. Food rots. Famine follows abundance predictably. Someone discovers that certain mushrooms are highly nutritious and safe. This is valuable knowledge that could feed many. But explaining which mushrooms are safe requires precise description. Similar-looking mushrooms are deadly. The explanation fails. Someone dies from eating the wrong mushroom. Now all mushrooms are considered dangerous. The food source is abandoned. A group lives near a clay deposit perfect for pottery. They eventually figure out basic pottery. But the knowledge requires not just finding clay, but understanding which clay works, how wet it should be, how thick to make walls, how long to fire it, how hot the fire needs to be. Complex, interconnected knowledge. They have pottery. Groups 50 miles away with equally good clay never develop it. Can't learn it from the first group. Medicine remains almost non-existent. Someone notices that willow bark seems to help with pain. They use it successfully, try to tell others, but identifying willow specifically is hard. Explaining how to prepare it is harder. Most people get it wrong. Use other tree bark, doesn't work. The discovery fails to propagate. Broken bones kill or cripple because no one figures out proper splinting. Someone might accidentally splint a break adequately. It heals reasonably well, but they can't communicate the technique. Can't explain why it worked. Others see the splinted limb but don't understand the purpose or method. The knowledge doesn't transfer. Generations pass and the isolation deepens. Language doesn't just fail to standardize, it continues fracturing. Every family develops its own micro-dialect. Parents and children barely understand each other fully by the time the child is grown. The linguistic drift is exponential. A young person tries to communicate with their grandparent. The generational language gap is so severe they communicate mostly through gesture. The grandparents' words sound archaic, structured differently, using sounds that have fallen out of use. The young person's speech is rapid, corrupted, mixed with innovations the old person never learned. They look at each other across an unbridgeable divide. Groups that stayed in contact just 2 generations ago can no longer communicate at all. The languages have diverged completely. What were once dialects of a common tongue are now mutually unintelligible systems. And there's no writing to anchor language, no dictionary, no shared reference. Just constant drift in all directions. Someone has an insight about animal behavior. They notice that certain animals appear before rain. This could predict weather. They try to share this. But explaining the correlation between animal behavior and future weather requires causal language. Abstract connection between observed phenomenon and predicted outcome. The explanation comes out garbled. Others think the person is saying the animals cause rain, or that you should hunt those animals, or nothing comprehensible at all. The observation is lost. The frustration of having thoughts you cannot communicate becomes normal. Everyone experiences it constantly. You understand something in your mind, but cannot make the sounds that would transfer that understanding to another mind, so the understanding stays trapped, dies with you. Every human is a library that burns when they die. Groups stay small not just because of resources, but because communication breaks down past about 30 individuals. Once the group gets larger, there are too many competing dialects, too much confusion. Coordination becomes impossible. Groups that grow past this size fracture automatically, split into smaller units that drift apart geographically and linguistically. This prevents any kind of large-scale organization. No towns, no cities, no kingdoms, no empires. Human political organization is capped at the extended family level. Maybe 40 people maximum, usually fewer. Technology remains trapped at the most basic level for thousands of years. Hand axes, spears, fire, basic clothing. That's it. That's where it stays. Someone in a cold climate figures out how to sew animal skins together to make better clothing. This is huge. Could save countless lives in winter. But teaching sewing requires explaining needle-making, thread-making, stitch patterns, techniques. The person tries to teach, others watch. Some figure it out partially. Most don't. The technique spreads slowly and imperfectly. Many groups in cold climates never learn it. They die in winter or retreat to warmer areas. Shelter remains basic. Caves when available. Simple windbreaks made of branches. No construction of actual buildings. Building requires coordination, multiple people following a plan, bringing different materials, assembling in specific order. Can't coordinate this without language. Someone has the idea to dig a pit for storage. Keep food in the ground where it stays cooler. Smart idea, but explaining why you're digging a hole and why others should help is impossible. The person digs alone, makes a small pit, it helps them. Others see it but don't understand the purpose. Think the person is crazy. Digging for no reason. The idea doesn't spread. Food storage in general doesn't develop well. Drying meat requires explaining the process. Smoking requires technique and patience. Fermentation is too complex to discover and share without language. So food stays fresh or rots. Feast and famine cycle never smooths out. Population growth is capped by these limitations. Can't grow population without food surplus. Can't create food surplus without storage and agricultural techniques. Can't develop those without communication. The population stays stable and low. Disease spreads easily because prevention requires shared knowledge, isolating sick people, avoiding contaminated water, basic hygiene. These concepts can't spread. Every group learns through death and survives through luck. An epidemic sweeps through the human population. It moves slowly because groups are isolated. But when it reaches a group, it devastates them. No immunity, no understanding, no treatment. Half the group dies. The survivors have no idea why. The disease moves on, hits another group. Same result. Human population crashes, recovers slowly. Then another disease comes. The cycle repeats. Genetic bottlenecks happen repeatedly. Small, isolated populations inbreeding. Genetic diversity crashes in each group. Birth defects increase. Genetic diseases become common within specific isolated populations. The species as a whole is fragile. Climate change impacts groups differently. An ice age begins. Groups in northern areas must migrate or die. But they can't coordinate large-scale migrations. Can't share information about where to go. Each group decides independently. Many go the wrong direction. Hit dead ends, mountain ranges, oceans. They die out. Some groups make it to better areas, survive, but they're genetically impoverished. Small populations with limited diversity. They persist, but barely. Humans almost go extinct several times. Disease plus climate change plus isolation. The global population drops to maybe a few thousand individuals scattered across continents. No contact between populations. Each group thinking they might be the only humans left. They recover slowly, population grows, spreads out. But nothing changes fundamentally. Still isolated, still incommunicable, still locked at primitive technology levels. An ice age ends. Glaciers retreat, new land opens, groups expand into it, but they expand as isolated units. Don't coordinate, don't share discoveries. Each group enters new territory alone and unprepared. Coastal groups discover shellfish are good food, reliable, abundant. This could support larger populations, but the knowledge stays coastal. Inland groups never learn it. They continue struggling with less reliable food sources. Someone discovers that certain plants are better to eat at certain times of year. Seasonal variation in edibility and nutrition. Useful knowledge, can't communicate it effectively. Others in the group sort of understand through observation over many years. But the details are lost, the knowledge degrades. A group lives near a salt deposit. Salt is valuable for preserving food and for health. They use it. Other groups nearby don't know about it. The group with salt can't explain its value, can't trade for it because trade requires negotiation. The resource stays localized and underutilized. Metal deposits exist everywhere. Copper, tin, iron. No one discovers metalworking. Discovering metallurgy requires experimentation and knowledge sharing, requires teaching. Someone would need to notice that certain rocks melt in hot fire, would need to experiment with that, would need to figure out casting or forging, would need to teach others. None of this chain happens. Metal remains unused in the ground, while humans struggle with stone and wood and bone. Glass is never invented. Pottery stays rare and crude. Textiles never develop beyond basic animal skin clothing. Leatherworking stays primitive. Architecture doesn't exist. No designed buildings, no engineering, no bridges. Rivers are barriers that can't be crossed except at shallow points. Roads don't exist. Paths exist where people walk repeatedly, but no constructed roads, no maintained routes. Each group travels its own local area. Beyond that is unknown territory. Exploration barely happens. Why explore? You can't communicate with anyone you find, can't trade, can't form alliances. Exploring just reveals more incomprehensible strangers. Most groups stay in familiar territory. The world stays unknown. Groups 100 miles apart might as well be on different planets. They'll never meet, never communicate, never share anything. Art remains purely personal. Someone carves a figure. It means something to them, means nothing to anyone else. No artistic tradition, no styles, no schools of thought. Just individuals making marks that die with them. Music stays rhythmic. No melodic development, no harmony, no musical notation to preserve songs. Each generation's music is lost. The next generation makes new, simple rhythms. Dance is individual expression. No coordinated group dances because you can't teach choreography without language. Ritual exists, but is private. Someone performs actions they feel are significant. Others might copy without understanding. Cargo cult behavior, going through motions without comprehension. Death rituals vary wildly even within single groups. Everyone handles death differently. No shared meaning, no comfort from shared practice. Grief is isolating. You lose someone, you feel pain. But you can't share it, can't talk through it, can't be comforted by others who understand. You suffer alone, even surrounded by family. Love exists but can't be expressed well. You feel affection, bonding, but you can't speak it, can't hear it spoken to you. Relationships are physical and contextual. The emotional depth is limited by inability to communicate feelings. Anger builds because frustration is constant. You can't make yourself understood, can't understand others. Every interaction carries potential for misunderstanding and conflict. Violence is common, more common than it needs to be. Arguments that could be resolved through discussion escalate because discussion is impossible. Trust is hard to build. You can't explain your intentions, can't understand others' explanations. Every cooperation is a risk. Every stranger is a threat. Paranoia is rational. In a world where you can't communicate, you can't verify anything. Can't know who to trust. Can't form reliable alliances. Assuming everyone is potentially hostile makes sense. Humans spread across the globe, but remain forever alone. Millions of people on Earth, each trapped in linguistic islands, unable to connect, unable to build anything together. Some groups develop slightly better. By chance, their language stays more stable. By luck, they maintain slightly larger group sizes. They do marginally better. But they can't share their advantage, can't export their language or techniques. The advantage stays local, doesn't change the overall picture. Time passes, tens of thousands of years. Humans persist, population grows slowly, never explodes, because the limitations prevent population support structures. Never crashes to extinction, but never thrives. Other species that humans would have driven extinct survive. Megafauna persists because human hunting isn't coordinated enough to overhunt. The mammoth survives, the giant sloth survives, ecosystems remain more intact because humans remain weak, but humans suffer. Constant struggle, constant isolation, constant failure to progress. The potential is there, the intelligence exists, but it's locked away, useless, inaccessible. Someone is born with the mind of a genius. In your timeline, they would have been Einstein or Da Vinci. In this timeline, they're a hunter-gatherer who has brilliant insights they can never share. They die frustrated and forgotten. This happens thousands of times. The human experience in this timeline is tragedy. Consciousness trapped in isolation. Intelligence without outlet. Social creatures unable to truly socialize. The loneliness is existential and permanent. And it continues. Forever, potentially. Because language never standardized. Because that early critical period where human language should have converged into shared systems, it didn't. It fractured instead. And once fractured, it kept fracturing. The divergence became exponential. There's no path back, no way to re-standardize. Groups are too isolated, too mutually incomprehensible, too suspicious of each other. The window closed. The possibility died, so humans remain scattered, alone, speaking in private languages that no one else will ever understand, living short, brutal lives of isolation. Having thoughts that die unshared, making discoveries that vanish, creating things that crumble, loving people they can't speak to, dying alone even when surrounded by family. The world is full of humans, but humanity as a collective doesn't exist. There is no human civilization, no human achievement, no human progress. Just millions of isolated individuals going through the motions of survival without ever connecting into something larger. A child is born. She opens her eyes and cries. Her mother holds her, speaks to her in a language no one outside their immediate family will ever fully comprehend. The child will grow up hearing this language, will learn it imperfectly, will speak a corrupted version to her own children. The linguistic chain degrades with each link. The child grows. By age 3 she speaks, but already her language differs from her parents. She invents words they don't use, drops sounds they do use. Her parents understand her mostly, her grandparents barely. By age 10 she's learning to survive, gathering plants, setting small traps, making simple tools. She learns by watching. No one can explain the why behind the how. She copies actions without understanding principles. Sometimes she succeeds, often she fails. By 15, she has her first child. She tries to teach her baby the way her mother taught her, but the words are different now. The grammar has shifted. Her child learns a third-generation corruption of the original language. Communication becomes more difficult with each passing generation. She watches her mother try to tell her something important. Some knowledge about which plants are safe in winter. The explanation is confused. Her mother doesn't have words for some concepts, and uses the wrong words for others. The daughter understands part of it, misunderstands another part, goes out and gathers the wrong plants, gets sick, survives, but the knowledge is completely lost now. Her grandmother dies. With her dies knowledge of plant medicine that took a lifetime to learn. Knowledge of where to find water in dry seasons. Knowledge of animal behavior. Stories about dangerous areas. All gone. The grandmother tried to share it, but the language barrier between her and her granddaughter was too great. The words didn't mean the same things anymore. The girl's own daughter grows up speaking yet another variant. By now, the language is so far removed from what the great-grandmother spoke that if they could somehow meet, they couldn't communicate at all. 4 generations. Complete linguistic separation. The group encounters another group. Both descended from the same ancestral population just 10 generations back. They try to communicate. It's completely impossible. The languages have no recognizable common elements. Both groups are frustrated, frightened. They separate quickly. This pattern repeats everywhere. Languages fracturing, knowledge disappearing. Each generation slightly more isolated than the last. Someone in a northern group figures out that you can predict weather by watching clouds. They develop a whole system of cloud reading. Different cloud types, different patterns. It's sophisticated. It works. They try desperately to teach their children. Some of it transfers, most doesn't. The terminology they invented for cloud types doesn't mean anything to their kids. Within 2 generations, the system is completely lost. People look at clouds, but don't understand what they're seeing. A coastal group develops extensive knowledge of tides. They know the patterns, can predict when the water will be low for gathering shellfish, when it will be high and dangerous. This knowledge is survival. They guard it carefully, try to teach it. But explaining tidal patterns requires temporal language, future and past tenses, cyclical time concepts. Their language barely supports this. The teaching is incomplete. Some children get it intuitively, most don't. When those intuitive ones die, the knowledge degrades further. A desert group learns to find water underground by reading plant signs. Certain plants mean water nearby. They've mapped this knowledge through generations of observation. But the plant names in their language keep changing. Each generation uses different names. The mapping becomes confused. Eventually, people remember that some plants mean water but not which ones. The knowledge becomes useless. A forest group has learned to track animals with remarkable skill. They can read signs, days old, predict where prey will be. This skill is taught through extensive observation and minimal explanation. But the explanations matter. Understanding why a broken twig means something requires logic and language. Without proper language, it's just memorizing patterns without comprehension. The skill degrades, becomes less effective. Each generation of trackers is worse than the last. A mountain group has navigated their terrain for generations. They know the passes, the safe routes, the dangerous areas. This knowledge has kept them alive through countless winters. But teaching roots requires describing landmarks in ways that persist across linguistic drift. The old names for mountains and valleys don't match the new names. Young people go into the mountains following directions that use outdated terminology. They get lost. Some die. The roots are forgotten. Tools become simpler over generations in most groups. Complex tools require teaching. Maintaining quality requires preserved knowledge. Both require language. As language degrades, so do tools. A group that once made excellent stone blades now makes crude ones. They've forgotten the precise techniques. No one can explain the fine points anymore. Fire starting techniques vary widely and unpredictably. Some groups maintain good methods, others lose them periodically. A firekeeper dies before teaching anyone adequately. The group struggles to make fire for a period. Eventually, someone figures it out again, but continue 12:51 a.m.? It's a different method. Less reliable, perhaps, or more labor-intensive. The knowledge doesn't progress. It cycles through loss and rediscovery constantly. Medicinal knowledge is the worst affected. Medicine requires precise identification of plants, exact preparation methods, proper dosing. All of this requires clear communication and reliable teaching. None of which exists. Medicine in this world is almost completely ineffective. People use plants randomly. Sometimes it helps. Usually it doesn't. Often it causes harm. Someone discovers that a particular bark tea helps with stomach pain. They use it successfully for years. Try to teach their children. The child understands that some bark helps stomach pain. Doesn't understand which bark. Tries several kinds. One is mildly toxic. Several people get sicker. The original remedy is now associated with harm. No one uses bark tea anymore. Another person learns that certain leaves packed on wounds prevent infection. This is huge. Could save lives regularly. They try to teach it. But identifying the specific leaves requires botanical knowledge and language. The teaching fails. Others try using random leaves. Infections worsen. The technique is abandoned. Wounds continue to kill through infection that could have been prevented. Social structures fragment along with language. As communication within groups becomes more difficult, cooperation suffers. Group size shrinks. The average group is maybe 15 people now. Nuclear families mostly. Extended family if lucky. Smaller groups are more vulnerable, less genetic diversity, fewer people to share work, less knowledge preserved, lower survival rates. But larger groups can't communicate well enough to function. The trade-off is terrible in both directions. Someone realizes that smoke from certain plants repels insects, burns these plants near sleeping areas. Fewer bug bites, better sleep, less disease from insect-borne illness. They try to show others which plants to use. The identification fails. People burn random plants. Some produce toxic smoke. People get sick. The practice is seen as dangerous, abandoned, the knowledge lost. A group develops better fishing spears with barbed points. Much more effective. Dramatically improves their food security. Other groups see these spears, want them, try to copy them, can't figure out how to create the barbs, can't ask, can't learn. The advantage stays localized. When that group dies out in an epidemic, the spear design is lost forever. Navigation across long distances becomes impossible. No one can give directions in ways that others understand. People who travel far from their group rarely return. They can't find their way back, can't ask directions, get lost, die. Travel becomes purely local. The world shrinks for everyone. Astronomy could have developed. People everywhere see the stars. Some notice patterns, but astronomy requires sharing observations, building on previous knowledge, teaching patterns and predictions. None of this happens. Stars remain pretty lights, nothing more. Mathematics never advances beyond the immediate and practical. One, two, several, many. That's the extent of counting. Abstract number concepts don't develop, can't develop without language to support them. No geometry, no algebra, no calculation beyond the most basic. Time measurement stays primitive, day, night, light, dark. Seasons in the vaguest sense, no hours, no calendars, no way to schedule meetings or coordinate future actions. Everything is immediate or vague. The concept of history doesn't exist. People know their parents lived before them, vaguely understand there were people before that, but no sense of deeper time, no chronology, no understanding of how far back humanity goes. The past is fog. Personal identity is limited. You know who you are. Your immediate family knows you. Beyond that, you're just another person. No legacy, no reputation beyond the people who directly know you. When you die, you're forgotten within a generation. Your name, if you even have one that others recognize, is forgotten. Your deeds are forgotten. You vanish completely. Accomplishments mean nothing beyond the immediate. You make a good tool, use it, it breaks. No one remembers you made it. You hunt well one day. The group eats. Tomorrow, no one remembers who caught the food. Everything is present tense, immediate, disposable. This creates a strange psychology. People live completely in the present because the past is unpreserved and the future can't be discussed. There's no striving for legacy, no building toward goals, just existing from moment to moment. Depression is probably common. The isolation, the inability to connect, the constant frustration of having thoughts you can't share, the loneliness of being forever misunderstood. This weighs on people. Some give up, stop trying, die earlier than they had to. Innovation still occurs but dies immediately. Someone has a clever idea, implements it, it helps them. They die. The idea dies with them. This happens constantly. Thousands of innovations lost every generation. Someone invents a better way to carry water. Plant fiber woven into a basic container. Works well, others see it. Try to copy. Most fail because the weaving technique requires precision they don't understand. The few who succeed can't teach others. When they die, their containers decay and the knowledge vanishes. Someone figures out that you can cook food on hot stones instead of directly in fire. Gives better control, reduces burning. They do this successfully. Others watch but don't understand why it works better. Don't adopt it. The method stays personal, dies personal. Someone discovers that certain grasses have edible seeds that are very nutritious. Could be a staple food. Changes their life, dramatically improves their nutrition. They try to show their family which grasses. The family sort of understands. Gathers some right grass, some wrong grass. The mix causes stomach problems. The right grass is abandoned along with the wrong. The discovery backfires. The cumulative effect of these constant losses is devastating. Humanity should be advancing, should be building on discoveries. Instead, every discovery is an isolated event that dies isolated. The knowledge base never accumulates. Actually shrinks over time as language degradation makes teaching harder. Groups that were once marginally successful become less so as language barriers increase internally. A group of 40 people was once cohesive. Communication was merely difficult. Now it's nearly impossible. The group fragments into 3 smaller groups. Each is less viable, more vulnerable, lower survival odds. Resources that require coordination to exploit stay unexploited. A large herd could be hunted efficiently by coordinated groups. But coordination is impossible, so the herd passes. People go hungry despite abundant food right there. A grove of fruit trees produces massive surplus one season, more than the local group can eat. Nearby groups are starving, but there's no way to inform them. No way to invite them to share. The fruit rots. People 20 miles away die of starvation. This happens constantly. Resources are abundant in one place, absent in another. No information flows, no trade, no sharing. People suffer and die unnecessarily. Watch the next timeline.